Erich Fromm once said, "Mature love is when we love while still preserving our own freedom." But if you've ever loved an avoidant, you know it feels like loving a shadow, sometimes close, sometimes distant, sometimes warm, sometimes cold, and you're constantly chasing just to keep the connection alive. Have you ever stayed up all night because of an unanswered text, stared at your phone lighting up, hoping it was them only to find it's a spam email? You know they care, but they pull away the moment you try to get closer. And the most painful part is, you start questioning your own worth. Avoidants never fully leave. They keep you at just the right distance so you won't walk away, but never let you reach their heart. They know you'll always be there, and that makes them feel safe, until the day you truly disappear. And here's the ultimate irony. When you cut them off completely, no texts, no checking in, no holding space for them in your heart, that's when they'll do something you've never seen before. They'll start chasing you. Not because they suddenly understand, but because they're finally experiencing what they once made you feel, the uncontrollable fear of loss. Today, I'm going to show you what happens when you truly walk away. And no, this isn't a trick to manipulate them. This is how you reclaim yourself and leave them face to face with the emptiness you once filled. Emma, 32, once thought she had found the man of her life. He was magnetic, intelligent, and carried a confidence that made others look up to him. But beneath that charm was something Emma didn't see at first. He was emotionally avoidant. Throughout their relationship, Emma was always the one to initiate texts, always the one to patch up the silence whenever he would withdraw without explanation. She would check in, share, and try to connect, and in return, he would respond just enough to keep her from leaving, but never enough to truly hold her close. In the early days of love, his coldness mixed with rare moments of sweetness felt like an emotional game Emma didn't realize she was playing. She told herself, maybe he's just busy, maybe he just needs space. But that space slowly became a distance she could no longer bridge. Every time she tried to step closer, he stepped further away. When the relationship hit its breaking point, they broke up. But Emma couldn't let go. She kept in touch, sending goodnight messages, replying whenever he texted, even though his replies were cold, dry, sometimes just a single word. Yeah, deep inside, she still held on to the fragile hope that if she stayed patient long enough, he would see her worth and come back. But day after day, that hope only drained her. She began to realize she wasn't just losing him, she was losing herself. And then, one morning, after a sleepless night staring at the ceiling, Emma decided, enough. No more texts, no more replies, no more social media following, no announcement. She vanished from his world, not to punish him, but because she finally understood her peace mattered more than anything. In the weeks that followed, Emma poured herself into rebuilding her life. She joined a morning yoga class, took weekend trips, tried things she had once missed out on because she was waiting for his messages. Little by little, she saw herself again radiant, free, and no longer dependent on someone who always kept her at arm's length. Then, 4 months passed. On a gray, rainy afternoon, Emma's phone began to buzz. One text, then 2, then 5, calls piling up. She looked at the name on the screen, the man who once said, "I don't need anyone," now knocking at her life's door again. But this time, it was different. He reached out through friends, asking about Emma. Once, she received a message from a mutual friend. He says he really misses you. And then, on a rainy night, while Emma sat by the window sipping tea, there was a knock on the door. She opened it, and there he was standing in the rain, drenched, eyes unsettled. "I can't take this anymore. I need you." In that moment, Emma realized the ultimate irony. Only when she truly let go did he begin to feel the fear of loss that she had lived with every single day before. The moment Emma stood at her doorway, watching him drenched in the rain, saying, "I can't take this anymore," was more than just a dramatic scene in her life. It was living proof of a psychological truth most people who've loved an avoidant don't realize. They feel safest when they know you're always there. Throughout the relationship, the avoidant behaves like a player, holding the remote control. When they want closeness, they move forward. When they feel pressure, they retreat. And because you've always been there each time they return, they've never had to face the possibility of truly losing you. This dynamic keeps you in a constant state of waiting, adjusting yourself to their rhythm. When you actively seek closeness, they feel pressured as if their personal space is being invaded. At that moment, their inner defense system kicks in. They create distance, reduce interactions, or suddenly become busy. This is how they protect their sense of autonomy. To them, too much closeness equals the risk of being engulfed or losing control, and that's what they fear most. But here's the paradox. When you truly withdraw, when you vanish completely from their radar, the attachment system they've been trying to keep dormant suddenly becomes highly activated. They begin to experience the very emotion they've spent a lifetime avoiding, the fear of loss. This isn't just ordinary regret. It's an internal alarm bell, signaling that your presence is no longer guaranteed. There are 4 main psychological factors that explain this phenomenon. First is reactance theory, a principle that says when something is taken away or forbidden, the brain wants it more. When you're still there, they have the choice to come close or pull away. But when that choice is gone, their mind pushes back against the loss by wanting you back. Second is competitive instinct. At a subconscious level, humans tend to want back what they've lost, to restore their sense of victory or personal value. When they realize you no longer give them your affection, attention, and energy, this instinct flares not necessarily out of love, but because they don't want to lose in the very game they once controlled. Third is loss of control. Avoidants often maintain an inner system where they believe they can decide when a relationship moves forward or stops. When you withdraw completely, you shatter that system, forcing them to face the reality that they cannot control everything as they thought. And losing control is one of the most uncomfortable experiences for them. Finally, facing their true emotions. When you're still there, they always have a cushion to avoid confronting their own emotional emptiness. Whenever they feel lonely or insecure, they could just return, send a message, and you would respond. But when you're gone, there's no one to react to, no warm text to fill the gap. They're forced to confront what they've always avoided: loneliness, fear of abandonment, and the realization that they might actually need someone. These 4 elements combined create a psychological shock, just like what Emma saw in the man who once said, "I don't need anyone." The key here is to understand that their reaction when you leave isn't some magical transformation turning them into a completely different person. It's often just a reflex to losing control and the safety they once had. And if you don't see it for what it is, you can easily mistake it for genuine change, when in reality, they're just trying to reclaim what once felt familiar. Understanding the 4 psychological factors that trigger an avoidance reaction when you withdraw is just the first step. To see the whole picture, we need to go deeper into the sequence of reactions they typically go through when your rejection is genuine, leaving no open door for them to return as before. This is the paradoxical path where all their emotional habits are reversed, and you see a side of them that rarely surfaced before. When the gap you've left becomes undeniable, they often enter the first stage, panic phase. This is when their attachment system flares up like a survival response. You'll notice a sharp change. Your phone starts lighting up with repeated messages, unexpected calls, even inquiries through friends or colleagues. They become hyper-aware of any sign of your life. A new photo on social media, a short status update, or even complete silence is enough to unsettle them. Notably, in this panic, they begin to idealize you. The very things that once annoyed them or drove them away fade into the background, replaced by a stream of fond memories, positive feelings, and a belief that we had it all. We just need another chance. They may promise change, promise to do better, or simply plead for a conversation to clear the air. But it's crucial to remember, their motivation at this stage often comes from the fear of losing you forever, not from genuine emotional growth. If, during the panic phase, all attempts to reach you fail, they transition into the pursuit phase. This is often the most surprising shift for those who have loved an avoidant, because of the complete role reversal. The one who kept their distance now initiates affection, repeatedly expresses care, and starts making future plans, things they once avoided or reacted negatively to. You might see them suggesting trips together, talking about meeting family, or even mentioning marriage. They may start therapy, read relationship books, or engage in self-development activities, and they make sure you know about it as a way to prove their change. However, a note of caution: often, the primary motive remains to win you back, not to change for their own sake. Actions in this phase are usually more public and intense public declarations of love on social media, surprise gifts at your workplace, or appearing at places you frequent. If the pursuit still doesn't break your silence, the avoidant moves into the begging phase. This is when their pride and the "I don't need anyone" image begins to crumble. You'll see a completely different version. They are willing to accept any terms you set, as long as it means regaining some connection. They might plead for just a single message, a short meeting, or a chance to explain everything. Their words often carry deep remorse, apologies they never voiced before, and promises of permanent change. In this phase, they might use channels they previously rejected, asking friends, family, or even mutual colleagues to relay their feelings. Some even open up about deeply personal, vulnerable matters, something that starkly contrasts with their previous distance. However, while these stages might make you believe they've changed, it's important to emphasize, these reactions are primarily driven by loss and loss of control, not necessarily by true emotional maturity. Without a process of self-awareness and long-term change from within, once they regain their sense of security, meaning you return, the old avoidant patterns can resurface. This is why understanding this reaction sequence matters. It allows you to see through the intense emotional display and assess whether it's sustainable change or just a temporary emotional storm. Seeing the entire chain of reactions from panic to begging is one thing, but knowing how to face and handle it is what truly matters. This is where the turning point happens, shifting from observing them to focusing on yourself. And this is the point where many fail, not because they don't know what to do, but because their hearts get pulled back in by promises and gestures they once craved. True rejection is not a tactic to win a power game. It's a decision born from the clear realization, this person, at this point in time, cannot meet the emotional needs and respect I deserve. This means not just stopping your texts or ignoring theirs, but ending all forms of connection. No social media interaction, no watching their stories, no asking about them through friends, no allowing even tiny bits of information about them to seep into your mind. More importantly, you must cut off emotionally, because if you're silent on the outside but still spend hours analyzing their every move and every word online, you haven't truly withdrawn. Avoidants are sensitive to this energy they can feel when you're still there, mentally, even if you try to appear detached. Instead, pour your energy into rebuilding your own life, not to show them, but to genuinely reclaim your joy and wholeness. Take up activities you've been putting off. Learn a new skill, start a personal project, travel to places you've dreamed of visiting. Share these moments on social media if you want, but naturally, without hidden messages meant for them. The goal is not to send signals to the avoidant, but to affirm to yourself, my life does not freeze for anyone. If you choose, open yourself to dating someone new, not to spark jealousy, but to experience again what it feels like to be treated with care and respect. It's also a practical reminder that there are many people in the world capable of loving and partnering in a healthy way. The key is to stay consistent. One of the most common mistakes is withdrawing for a few weeks, then reopening the door when they return with sweet words. In doing so, you unintentionally teach them that all they have to do is wait you out, and the old cycle resumes. You chase, they retreat. Real change can only happen when they understand that losing you is the consequence of choices they repeatedly made, and that there is no safe door to return through unless they truly change from within. You must also be mentally prepared for the possibility that they won't come back. This is the part many don't want to face, but it is the foundation of your strength. When you truly reject, you choose to put yourself above the relationship, and that means accepting all outcomes, including losing them forever. The paradox is, your willingness to lose them is what gives you the power to break free from the emotional control an avoidant unconsciously maintains. Throughout this process, keep reminding yourself, the goal is not to make them change or come back. The goal is to free yourself from an unhealthy relationship pattern. When you do this for yourself, everything becomes clearer. If they return having truly changed, you'll see it. If they don't, you'll still be okay because you've built a life that doesn't depend on them. When you've reached the end of the path of true rejection, you realize something profound. The problem was never just about them. Yes, the avoidant has defensive patterns and emotional limits they're not ready to overcome, but it was also the way you stayed too long. the way you kept justifying their distance, that slowly caused you to lose pieces of your own worth over time. That's why the final step of this journey isn't about waiting for them to knock on your door again. It's about healing yourself. And to do that, you need an honest truth. The question you should be asking isn't, will they come back? But, if they do come back, would I still want the same old version of them? When you ask this, a new kind of space opens up, not the space of loss, but the space of freedom. Freedom to choose a life no longer limited by emotional deprivation, no longer driven by unconditional hope. Avoidants only truly change when they choose to change for themselves, not because they're afraid of losing you. And most of the time, that change, if it happens, doesn't come from pressure or pursuit, but from them having to face the emptiness after you've gone. Your withdrawal isn't to punish, nor to win an emotional battle, but to protect your worth and dignity. At this stage, you need an anchor to keep from being swept back into sudden waves of emotion. One classic book that can walk beside you is Attached by Amir Levine and Rachel Heller. This work offers deep insight into attachment styles, how to identify the hidden motivations behind each one, and more importantly, how to build a healthy relationship, whether with someone new or in the process of rebuilding yourself. As you read, you'll understand why you stayed too long, why you felt you had to do more to be loved, and how to break that cycle. Because healing isn't about forgetting, it's about remembering without pain. It's not about closing your heart, it's about learning how to open it to the right person at the right time. It's not about becoming numb, it's about knowing your limits and your worth, so that no one, not even someone you love, can make you abandon yourself again. Imagine waking up one morning without checking your phone for someone's message. You make a cup of coffee, sit by the window, sunlight streaming into the room, and you realize your heart is at peace. Not because someone came back, but because you came back to yourself. Then you'll understand that the most important thing was never them chasing you. The most important thing is that you've learned never to run away from yourself. You'll see that real love doesn't come from scarcity, doesn't come from a game of winning and losing, but from two people stepping into a relationship with readiness, respect, and freedom. And if one day they return, you won't have to rush your decision. Because when you stand firmly on your own foundation, you'll see clearly, is this genuine change, or just panic wrapped in sweet words? You won't be pulled back into old cycles, because you'll know better than anyone your worth doesn't depend on whether someone chooses to stay or leave. The real ending of this story is not a door slammed in their face, nor a tearful reunion. The real ending is you walking away, without looking back, knowing you are whole with or without them. As this journey comes to a close, you'll realize that the most valuable thing you've gained isn't them changing or coming back, it's that you have changed. You are no longer the one waiting in anxiety, trying to prove your worth to someone who isn't ready to receive it. You've learned how to walk away when necessary, not because you don't love, but because you love yourself enough not to stay in an unhealthy relationship. There will be moments when old memories flood back, when you miss the good times, and that's normal. But you'll remember with a peaceful heart, no longer hoping, no longer placing your future in someone else's hands. And in that moment, you'll see that your true strength lies in knowing you deserve more than what you once accepted. Move forward with the confidence that no matter who chooses to stay or leave, you remain the one holding the power over your life. Real love isn't someone chasing you out of fear of loss. It's two people choosing each other every day because they both want to, and they're both ready. And in the end, remember, the greatest victory is not them recognizing your worth, it's you recognizing your own.